I got a question though. Poop. So you said 9 years they had a good run. Is that what marriage is? So if I'm married for 5 years, y'all be like, yo, Hamp, you did a good job, B. You could probably get out of that now.
No, but I do believe that I've seen people that have been married for 20 and 30 years, and one or both spouses are hanging on by a string. And people will go online as soon as their anniversary come up, oh, this is so and so, and they got 30 years together, but your wife is miserable. She committed tried to commit suicide last week. You ain't been home in 2 weeks, but you celebrating 30 years of marriage for what? So longevity isn't what we're celebrating, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 9 years. In those 5 years, are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you healthy?
Mm-hmm.
And if you said I've been married for 15 years, but I know you've hated your wife for the last 10 years, I'm not celebrating that. That's not a celebration, and people need to stop doing that. Because people put you on a pedestal for staying in relationships for so long.
Mm-hmm.
People put me on a pedestal for being in a relationship for 20 years. I ain't like this nigga for the last 7. So like don't celebrate, don't like people called us the Black Cosby and all that, and I started to feel the pressure. Do not put me on a pedestal. That's not this ain't what it is.
That's
And that
good.
goes back to what
People
you
need
said
to
earlier.
stop celebrating longevity and start celebrating happiness and healthiness. Are you guys happy? Are you respecting each other? Or, and if that's not it, I don't care if you've been married 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, 35 years. And everybody's celebrating their grandparents, but their grandmother hated the grandfather, tried to kill him 3 times
Where do
in the
y'all get?
last week.
Where do you get that from?
But that's the
My
thing we said the last time.
grandparents.
Yeah.
But where do you guys get that? So that you know what that's called? Color purple syndrome. You've seen one movie, and now we act
No,
about
your
Yeah.
own family, not a
Yeah,
movie.
these are
Real life
lived
people that
experiences.
you know.
Yeah.
People
no.
that we're not talking about movies, we're talking about real life situations. And I'm
Yes.
sure that you could think, if you took a second and just thought, like, do I know anybody that's been married for a long time, and all right, they've been married 20 years, they've been married 30 years, are they happy, or do they fight like cats and dogs?
Yeah. Because divorce rates are higher now than they were back in the day, and I think it's because now we have the choice, and there's not as much stigma associated with getting divorced. I
Mm-hmm.
believe in divorce. If you ain't
Uh,
healthy,
I
thinking
think
Temora said, get out.
I think
Absolutely.
women. I think women are much. I mean, I think the woman of yesteryear was so much easier, better, more. There was not so much talking and bullshit, and I'm independent and I'm doing all
Was
this
it
and the
healthy?
third. The woman
Was
of
that healthy?
yesteryear, I think, compared to the modern woman, was much more feminine.
I don't think that it comes down to being feminine, but I think what happens is you guys are the first generation to where you got to show up to a relationship with more than dick and a job. You only had to show up with dick and a job back then. As long as you had a job and you knocked your woman down every once in a while, it didn't matter if you had a side boob, that was accepted. But this is the first time that men have to actually come with personality. You have to actually be liked.
What
You
are
have to
y'all
come
doing?
more.
What
That's
are
not,
y'all
that's,
You
doing
that's not
so
you
true.
have
good?
to
You
you
gotta
have to
say
be
it
able to have a
tomorrow.
What are y'all
conversation.
doing that's
And so
good?
now this is the first time dick in a job is not enough. So like, what do you mean? I gotta
That is
have a
not
conversation.
accurate.
What do you mean I
Mediocre is
have to
good good
have
though.
Because I got a
Mediocre.
personality?
job too. What
That
are we
is
talking
that
about?
is not
Right. So
accurate.
now you have to have personality. Now you have to make your wife happy. Now you got to actually talk to her, because if you don't, she's gonna leave you. Dick in the
It-
That's
job
not
is no
accurate.
longer enough.
That's
what?
not accurate. That's not accurate.
Say it.
That's not accurate.
That's not a
And
So,
thing.
what?
if- so if
Why is
so
it
if
not?
we're dismissing men of the past by just a dick and a job, then that means they showed no duty and responsibility to their family. No, that's not accurate.
You're talking about labor again.
That's the
Did,
job.
Yeah,
did, was there
Yeah,
connection, emotional? I'm
duty,
not saying all. I'm not saying
duty,
all.
and responsibility. Yes, because if it was just digging a job, then you could do that 3, 4 times with 3, 4 different women. If it's just digging a job, if that's all you were relied
So
upon for was digging a job, and you had no
digging a job, come
duty
home,
or
you
no
had to pay the bills and make sure that your family was supported. And as long
yeah,
as
and
you did that,
you
then
could
you
have
were considered a good man.
if you
It
could
didn't
have
matter
if
if you shared household responsibilities. It didn't matter if you took your wife on a date. It didn't matter if your wife was happy. It didn't matter if it didn't, because you know why? You took care of your kids. You made sure that there was a roof over everybody's head, and your responsibilities. You provided a roof. You send your kids to
duty,
college. You're right.
duty.
Exactly. Where's the personality?
Where's the love? Where's the love?
Where's the love? Where's the
This
personality?
looks
Where's
like
the
behind
connection?
closed doors. Yeah.
That was so corny, right? Where's
We're
the
not
love?
talking about love for real, right? No,
Love
no.
comes
You're
first.
talking about
Love ain't gonna
responsibility.
have you paying for kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews for 50 years. That's not love.
But see,
That's
you're
duty.
brainwashed to believe that all you have to do as a man is duty. There's
How?
more to,
No,
and we
no,
want more. And so
but
now the women of the
now
modern
it's
day
duty.
want more than you.
First it was just dick and a job. Now it's duty. How many more commodities are we
Well,
gonna add?
because so
Your
when
duty is dick in a job.
right, so the job, by you
Duh.
having a job, meaning that you're paying, so the job obviously supports the family, supports your kids. So that's all under the umbrella of a job. I didn't go into that, but that falls under the same umbrella. So
That's
you having the job means that you're taking.
That's really minimalistic to say that men have only been responsible for dick and a job for 100 years. That's crazy.
And then when
But
I
the
gave you
time
an
that's what was
opportunity,
considered a good man.
to talk, you said duty, which is still under the job umbrella.
No, it's not.
You never.
No, it's not.
But can we go
That's
back
what
to
I
the
meant.
beginning?
No, it's
That
not.
is what I
Because
meant. That's what I meant.
You can have a job and take care of yourself.
So to clarify, when
You
I
can have a
said
job and take care of yourself.
right, so what you're going based on what I said. So what I meant by saying dick in a job, meaning that your job is as long as you went to work and took care of your family. So to clarify that, so we don't go back and forth over that one word, that job means supporting your family, coming home and paying for the bills, making sure your kids go to college, and your wife, you have a roof over your head. But those are all.
You got a lot of fingers.
But it's all under the labor.
You got a lot of fingers.
It's all under labor. And you keep trying to talk over the fact that it's all under labor without leaving, without having any type of personality, emotional attachment.
Talking about.
But no, because let's go back to what you said. You started the conversation with you started the conversation with women were easier to manage.
They were more feminine for sure.
It has nothing to do with femininity.
No, fuck on.
Yesterday was way more feminine.
Because back in the day,
look at the energy we got right now.
When Temora talks about those relationships that were like 25, 30, 40, 50 years on the outside, I agree with her. We look like, oh my goodness. But behind closed doors, what did that really look like? We are talking about a generation of people.
Or 9 years.
We were talking about a generation of people from 40, 50 years ago who, in women, and we've had this conversation time and time again, they didn't have a choice because a lot of them didn't work outside the home. There was a huge stigma associated with it. Back in the day, a good man was considered someone who had a job,
a dick and a job,
a dick and a job. And it didn't matter if you cheated. Girl, lay down, shut up, take care of
these bills.
He's gonna pay these bills. So now we are in a realm where women, okay, that's cute. You have a job. Me too. What's up? What's next? I think
I need you to talk to me now.
So question. I'm just trying to figure out, like, you're saying that we have to have more than a dick in a job because you guys work now? Because that would be the only thing. You guys don't bring much more. What do you guys bring into the table that's valuable?
So aside from your dick in the job,
what are you bringing to the table today?
Protection.
I'd like to be placed in the bottom row.
I might go down there too.
So aside from you having a good job and supplying dick, then what makes you a good man? What makes you a good husband?
What else do you have?
You a good partner? Let's say you don't even have kids. Then what makes you a good partner?
If I can't have kids?
Let's say if you don't have children.
I'm about to say, you already know what time it is. I make a kid by sneezing, so poop, you know the vibes. But anyway,
so you got to clarify that. I mean,
I have kids, but not.
Oh yeah, I do have kids. All right.
Yeah, that part. That's all.
Okay.
Alex, ask me the question one more again.
My question was, so aside from, because y'all love to ask women, well, what do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? So aside from the dick and a job, taking that away, and let's say you and your partner didn't have kids, what else do you bring to the table? What are you bringing that's creating longevity and happiness and structure in this marriage? What are you bringing to the table?
Protection is key. Stability, right? And
stability is part of the job, or no?
Stability with what? Because you can pay bills. So
what do you mean?
Protection how?
can't. We make more money than y'all, so by and large, so you
But she's
can't pay
still
the same
talking
bill.
about money. She said without the job.
Yes,
But
without taking money aside.
well, stability is not just money though. It is how much money, how that money's managed, right? Who leads in these fields? It's not women. You know what you guys lead in?
I just said
Social work,
take that off the table. What
education,
else you bringing?
right?
You're
But
not answering her
understand,
question.
so what we provide is infrastructure, right? Everything that you see around you, the fact that you can walk, talk.
I know
Oh,
you
you
be
gonna hit us
listening
with
to
the
Kevin
Kevin
Samuels
Samuels.
right here. I know you do.
What are you?
Everything the light touches.
So y'all don't want reasons, right? I'm just saying though. But
everything the light touches.
it's the truth though. Everything that is around us is because we're here, right?
Okay, but you yourself personally, here, you did not create them lights.
You asking
What are
me-
you bringing?
We're talking about
What you bringing to
you.
this table?
God,
You gonna make these lights. You
We're
gonna make these
asking
lights.
you. Well, we know what we
Hey,
said
Alex,
last
that's
week.
for the win. Hey, hit the horn on that. She'll have to hit the horn on that.
there's no way that you can just say, okay, so I'm naming stuff. You saying, okay, that's not good. So now it gotta be
You said
what
money. You keep
It's
bringing up money.
never going to add up to something that they find acceptable. Because
Yeah.
if
No,
you
but
want
you
to,
keep
if you want
talking
to make,
about money, and you can't. Nobody has named anything outside of money besides
well,
protection.
well, what Alex said was him personally, right? Like, so if we make it a conversation about us, what we bring individually to our own relationships, then that's not going to be something y'all might deem necessary
Okay,
for
so maybe
you.
it's not y'all, but I know none of y'all friends or anybody y'all know was making these light switches. So
No,
in
but
today's
no,
modern men, with the
but
modern men, what are the
what
modern men collectively?
what
Since
is
y'all are the voice of the men, what y'all
what this
bringing?
part what this part of the conversation is about is how minimalistic women think men are and what we represent as men. That's what you really mean. Is
No,
that
I think that men now in successful relationships, those men are bringing more to the table than a dick in a job than what the past men. And those are the relationships that are a little more successful. When you are thinking about him laughing, but he just got on the podcast last Saturday and said he was sucking his wife's toes. So we know he's giving more than dick in a job. He's doing the most. So don't
Yeah,
sit there and pretend like you're not giving more than just
but you
dick in a
can't
job. You're
but you
giving extra attention. So that's a
but
part
in
of
the
that.
same statement, you can't say that men in the past haven't done that. You don't know all men. There's no
And
stats.
I can't speak.
No
We
poll.
can't.
We'll make
There's
a
no
general
I've
poll.
statement.
never. We're talking. So we can't speak for everybody. The same way that
Right,
I
but
can't
you
speak.
did
You
though.
can't speak
But
for
you
all.
did though. But you did because you
No,
said
that's
men in
We're
the
how
talking.
past
you
have only
that's how
got.
you interpreted it.
hey
No.
Sean,
She spoke
That's
in
what you're not
general.
gonna do.
hold on,
She
Sean.
spoke in general.
That
She spoke in
was she made a
general.
generalization. I'm not making that up.
Corey,
I'm
Right,
not
in
speaking to
general.
everybody. A
That's
generalization
not
is not speaking to
everybody.
stay
everybody.
with them,
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah,
You
put
can
me
stay
up
with
there.
them,
Y'all niggas
man.
tripping.
So
Okay.
again, answer
I'm
my
better off.
question, Corey, Sean, Hamp. What are y'all
Don't
bringing
put
to
me
the
with.
table?
I'm not with having shot on this one. They
This
tripping. They
guy.
wilding. I don't know.
I bring confidence to my woman. I bring confidence. I bring humor. I bring everything to the table.
Not that funny.
No, then you have some. Then
I
say
am. I'm
that.
You
fun.
have something
What
Hey,
to
is
look.
bring, but before
She
that
Then say
wasn't
that.
Yeah,
right, and that's a good thing.
what's
she
happening?
thinks. Hey, Corey. She think I'm funny as hell. So
Okay.
You're not
that's
fucking,
all that matters.
Not
I
funny.
am hilarious.
definitely not fucking funny now. Don't do that.
So she
I'm
can
hilarious
clarify.
to her.
You know, that's what matters. But I think, I think a lot of this is speculation, right? Because if we're saying that the women weren't happy back then, but the divorce rates are so much lower, how do you justify that? Are you just saying, but Alex, I guess you're saying because they were obligated to stay there, so then therefore that everything else mattered less?
Yes.
Okay, I think you're wrong.
Well, no, I mean a lot of
Anybody
the times
70
it's an
or older?
obligation. Okay.
Excuse me.
Have you had? I'm assuming you've had conversations with people older than you that's been married for a while. What do they? What has their take been? Because I've seen you do interviews with older married couples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I did my parents, and that shit.
What was that like?
My dad described it as
Right.
hell, but he described it as hell, not my mom. So that would actually go be contrary to your point.
She wanted to describe it as hell.
The
She just didn't want to.
Exactly.
Met
But
her, you know that it don't take much for her to get started. So, but again, I don't like when people do that when they use one example and try to make their point, right? But other examples I do have is like my great grandparents. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't, from what I could gather, there wasn't any of that. He wasn't hitting her, or he always used to open her doors, so on and so forth. My great grandma died; she was 96 or some old shit like that. And then my grandma, right? She a pastor and shit. My Papa June, they was married for 30 years. I never seen anything like that of that nature. So if you go off, specific examples, I wouldn't be a good person to ask. Now, not to say that those examples are the only ones, but if you go off the statistics, it just doesn't. I think honestly, I do think that color purple shit is really like kind of something that we kind of lean towards. When by and large, I don't think that was the case. Go ahead, Sean.
The
Oh,
goalposts move,
sorry.
right?
Poop, did you want to rebuttal that? Because I know you asked me.
I'm sorry.
Did you want to say something like rebuttal? Because I know you asked me the question.
Well, the
I'll
thing
respond.
was the things that you mentioned and that you talked about in your grandparents, your great grandparents, and your parents were all longevity, but not the happiness of their relationship, which is how we got here, right? So you're saying, well, they were together 30 years, or so and so was together, for 40 years. But in those years, were they happy? And so we're not talking about the longevity because we could say somebody's been together for 20 years, but those 20 years were they happy years?
So then I say yes, and how are you going to say no? How do you,
Yeah. So if you say yes, then that's your view of what you saw, and so based on what you saw, they were happy. But my question was, have you asked them that?
is that's another question you mean?
It's part of the same question. When I
No.
asked you originally, you mentioned the longevity of the three relationships that not the
How did we
happiness.
even get here though? Ham started off making statements like women are more feminine back in the day than they are now, which I don't even know
Because
what
he mentioned they
that
were
meant.
more manageable because they
Right.
didn't have all this back talk. They didn't have all this thing. They were more feminine. The
That
issue
You
being,
have a bunch of masculine energy.
it's not even about being masculine, but like
Yes,
because they're independent now, because they're taking charge of,
now
and
what
taking a role, an active role in their life.
is independence good?
Is independence good? Why would it ever be bad?
Well,
Why
what
would
I'm
sovereignty of one's body ever
are
be bad?
because in other cultures they don't have the same independent streak. So has independence of our women benefited us?
And what culture do you? I'm confused.
it's
What do you
benefited
mean?
the women for sure.
Absolutely.
I didn't say
Outside the household.
It's
us.
absolutely benefited women to have independence.
Is
In
it outside the household or inside the household?
so
They're
well
outside the household because there's two different
outside the
roles.
house.
I personally think there's two different roles. I want to
Okay.
be submissive in my household, but outside of the house, I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to continue to make money. I'm going to continue to be a boss. I'm going to continue to be the person that you know me to be, but you don't share a bedroom with me. I don't want to be in charge of my household. And if I feel like I have to be in charge, that's for me, but I'm a submissive. I consider myself a sub.
Yeah. Do you
Well,
Yes, sir.
question?
I think that's the same thing that you think,
Yeah.
Pierre.
I mean, it is. It is by
It's not like a
definition. It
You know the
is.
bottom.
lingo.
It's a sub.
It actually is a bottom. It actually is a bottom, but we're not going to that today.
So as a sub, I don't want to be. I'm not trying to tell nobody what to do. That's not my thing. I'm not into that.
So in our so other cultures though, right? They do stay married. They're not divorced or unmarried at the same rates as us. Their children are born out of wedlock at the same rates as us, right? They're not impoverished at the same rates as us, right? And so our family structure broke down and these things rose, right? So now when our women are independent and they quote unquote
Uh,
need us,
white women got independence in this country too. Like, did they suffer from the same things? Do they suffer from poverty at the level that we do? Like, the struggles of the black community isn't about women getting
no,
their
no,
independence.
no. So I'm not saying that this is the only reason, but our family structure broke down. When their women gained whatever independence you think they have, their family structures aren't broken. What's the percentage of wedlock?
But the independence is the issue.
Right.
You're
If,
saying
if all things are
no.
the same.
Right, right.
I think there's also their men weren't ripped from their homes too, so that has to matter as well, right? Their men aren't jailed at the same rates, right? They have more opportunity, they have wealth, right? We have a lot of rich people, not so many wealthy people, so there's other factors that go into it, right? But our family structure broke down when this started to happen, when our women were they like framed it as independence because they started giving them government aid and government assistance, so you couldn't have a man in the house,
So the
right?
solution to our ills would be to remove the independence from black women.
No, we
You
just
think
having a
that affects our
conversation.
community?
We're just having a conversation. I'm just trying to see where the benefits have been for our community. What has happened?
The benefits are on a micro level, so it's at the at the individual level. You're not going to see there's no unity across the Black community as it is, right? There's no unity. You can't just say what works for us here is going to apply across the board. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, that's a morality question. That's a morality question. That isn't something that could be solved with economics. That's a morality question because that's not something that we could base statistics on. That's something that what we have as a community deemed as the benefit of our community. What is a good relationship? What does a healthy community look like? That's a morality question. That's not an economics independence question.
Oh, no, I don't
Women,
know, brother. I
no,
think it's functionality, right? You have to have order. We have no order in our community at all.
And you think that comes from the women having independence? Like, I don't understand where you're going with the independence thing.
Well, that's just, I mean, that was just one facet of it. But yeah, so we don't have order in our communities, though. I think that's what breaks up. So I guess that's where the independent thing would come in. Like, our women don't think that men should lead by and large. Or correct me if I'm wrong. When women are talking to other women, do they think that Black men should lead, or we gotta prove some shit to y'all and show and all this stuff? Do you guys believe in like happy wife, happy life? Like, is that the conversations you guys are having?
I think that I just think we're in a different time altogether. Like, you're speaking about Black men, and I think for you and the caliber of men that you're around, y'all may be that strong leadership Black man that a Black woman could benefit from, but y'all don't exist in large numbers from where I'm sitting and from the females that I'm friends with. So it's like, when you don't have that, how can you be led? And if you're not being led properly and feeling confident in that, then how do you submit? So I think that that's kind of pushing women to be a little bit more independent, is because they'll be waiting around forever for a guy to really step into that position, to do what needs to be done, and to kind of be like, all right, I got you in this. From what I see with a lot of men, especially men in the Black community, is that they were being raised by women. So they don't have that backbone that's necessary to even lead a household. It's like the women are kind of like superseding them in some ways. So it's just I just think we're in a different time.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of son husbands, for sure.
I'd push back on that a little bit because I think there's a conflict of interest. I think women want the traditional man, but are the modern woman, and I don't think the two coincide. So I think there's a conflict of interest.
Good point.
I think what women want is for a man to be traditional, which is kind of contradictory to what you said earlier. Temora was a dick and a job, right? Like from the men in the past. If that's the case, then women wouldn't want the traditional man. But the traditional man practiced the customs and courtesies of what women want today. So it's a conflict of interest. I think I don't know if there's a meeting at the summit that needs to happen or whatever, but I think what women want today out of a man is what a man used to be. And to your point, to your point, Q, there were a lot of I was raised by a single mom. There's a lot of men raised by single women that you kind of got to figure it out on your own. You got to figure out your own way, your own path, how to build your own masculinity separate from your mother. So I agree with what you're saying. Like you said, like Ham said, there's a lot of son husbands. But when you find that maturity, that masculinity, you weren't traditionally raised. So now you meet a woman who wants a traditional man, and you don't fit the bill. You know what I mean? Because it's contradictory. So either we're gonna move the goalposts and say we're gonna all be modern, and we're not gonna want the traditional man, or women got to revert back to the traditional woman to get the traditional man.
Right. I agree with that. As far as the traditional part, I think though you kind of did add to my point is in that you might be a rarity. That might be something to be considered too. In that,
rare about that nigga.
I think if you're really, how can I say it? I think if you're raised around women that are feminine, it's harder for you to have that masculine side to you that's needed. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
So you could be a rarity.
That's fair.
I've
That
seen.
goes back to what we talked back, I think, a few episodes ago. Is exactly, you said exactly what we said a few episodes ago. When men are raised by women, like they just, if you don't have the skill, and women are demanding something from men that they just can't give, they just can't give it. So it might not be the women's independence that's the issue. Is that men don't have masculinity to give.
Yeah, I think
why isn't that the question? Because men just, it's not that we don't want it, you don't have it to give. And so we're browbeating you and demanding something that's, it's not that you don't want to give it, you just don't have the skills and the tools to provide it. Now you, on the other hand, were raised around men, so maybe you have some of these skills, but what about the majority of the men that were born in the 80s and late 70s? They don't have this, they just don't have the skills. And so they have to depend on their wife. They have to depend on their girlfriend. They're moving in with them.
Yeah, I mean that's fair too. I think that's like all. I don't think all of it's mutually exclusive. I think this is an issue, and then that can also be an issue. You know, honestly, Corey, you making a bunch of dumb faces. What?
I don't even know. I don't know. So I don't have any of these problems in my life. So it's hard for me to. I don't even know how to feel about some of these comments. Yeah, I don't know. This never has come up in my life. Like just who's the leader, who's feminine, who's masculine. Like I don't know. I don't have this fucking issue. I'm not really sure why other people do. So I don't know. I don't have.
Remember, we this is a talk show, brother. So we just talking about shit. Like it's not necessarily
like why does, I mean, not why are we talking about it, but like why would this shit come up? Like
it happened because look at
who like for one, I feel like you're always trying to like define like who's the leader. Like who gives a shit? Like I don't need no title of a leader like in my house. Like we just operate. We operate for a common goal.
You know who gives a shit? You know who gives a shit? People who want to be led. They give a shit.
I mean,
they give a shit.
You married a sheep, nigga. Like, I mean, what the fuck? What you mean want to be led? Like, I don't know. But then maybe that's probably I don't. Maybe that's unattractive to me. Someone who wants to be led. So I don't find myself in that situation.
So Corey, you a sub too?
Huh? No. Yeah, what's up, man? Me alone. We just a team.
I guess you have to understand what that is, right? So I guess in a household, it doesn't mean that you don't have the skills to manage a household or that you don't have the executive functioning skills to be able to make decisions. It means that you that you want to be a submissive person.
Also, just to point out, I know Corey, so he is masculine. And he's in charge of his house.
But there's no conversation about like or I don't feel like
because it's never had to be a conversation for you.
Leaders lead. There's no conversation about who's leading. It just happens. Right. If you naturally have, so I'm not going to use this because we know Corey will take this out of context, but there's men that have BDE, right? Just natural masculine energy. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to say what you don't have to what is it called? Peacock, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to lift your feathers. You just are. You walk in the room, you just own it. You don't have to say anything. So if you have BDE, Corey, then you don't need to say anything. You just lead automatically. There's no conversation about it. It just happens naturally. There's no conversation that happens in relationships about who leads and who doesn't. Yeah. It just happens.
I think poop on that fact. Like if I just have like a moment, right? Because like when I first met my wife, right? And we were like talking about the Bible and shit, right? And I was just talking to her about order, right? When you start naming it, people take exception. You know what I'm saying? Like if that makes sense. Like when I'm like, this is the order, men, women, blah, blah, blah. She like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? But then when you start doing stuff and growing together and going out and, then it just falls into place naturally. When you start naming it, that I like literally from personal experience, that's when the friction came, right? Because it's already happening. But then when you say it, women, anybody don't want to hear something adverse to what they're accustomed to. You know what I mean? So when you hear something that you don't like, it could rub you the wrong way, even though it might be true.
The conversation sounds crazy, but it naturally just happens.
Yeah.
Leaders lead. There's no conversation like, "Oh, I'm the leader in this house."
Yeah, no one says today I'm going to be the leader.
That doesn't happen.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. You just naturally lead, and Corey doesn't even know because he's a leader. Probably he just does it. You don't even know that title exists.
Listen, man, we had it.
Nah.
Yeah, one of his friends. Yeah, girl almost froze to death fucking with Corey, but what Hey, Poop, Corey, I'm
independent.
Corey, do you carry bags yet?
Nah, man, I don't.
You carry your mom bags?
No, I don't. That's inconsiderate. Like, you should pack what you can carry. Don't pack what I can carry.
My life, never. What in the world?
That's inconsiderate. Yeah.
You not holding a Birkin?
No, hell no. I would never hold them. Fuck no. If you couldn't hold that shit, you should have left it at home. Like, before I leave the house, I'd be like, what can I carry today? If I can't carry this shit, I leave it at home. I would like to have a change of shoes and 4 new outfits with me, but I can't carry all that shit, so it get left at home. If you can't carry this shit, leave it at home. I'm not carrying it for you. I made sacrifices.
Hey, Corey, don't change, man.
Hey, man, look, I'm trying to be independent. They want to be independent.
Be independent.
They want to be independent. You want to be modern? Be modern.
You give them what they want, huh?
Yeah. If you leave the house without no jacket, you're gonna be cold. I checked the weather before I left. I don't know what you was doing.
True.
You gotta be grown today, me. I don't need no dependence. I don't have none. I don't want none.
I've seen this firsthand. So I believe it.
That nigga is dead serious.